Well, I hope you have your astronaut suit dry cleaned and ready to go because the stock market is poised to rip to the moon. In this video, I'll be breaking down everything you need to know, but here's the TLDR. Yes, the market has had a high amount of volatility and craziness, a lot of insane news, and the overall net impact is the market going down and down and down, but I am pleased to report I strongly believe the bottom is in, and not only are we going to see a bit of a bounce, but in the short term, I'm looking for a very high octane rip to the upside. So if you enjoy these type of market breakdowns, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. With that being said, let's rock. As a space traveler, to have a better understanding of where we're going, you kind of have to understand where we've been. So when the market closed on Friday to conclude the week, here was the official headline. Dow jumped 600 points on Friday, capping one of the most volatile weeks on Wall Street ever. And they were not kidding. So first of all, the heat map of the S&P 500, very green, the bulls clearly in control. Taking a look at the market, the SPY gained about 1.8%, the Qs a little bit more than that, vol coming down, and even the small cap sector putting in a nice day. And yes, that was Friday's trading session, but you really got to understand what happened in the week. S&P 500 rises 5.7% for the best week since November of 23. So that in itself is pretty crazy, a little bit historic, but what's more historic is what happened throughout the week. Obviously, things were pretty dismal on Friday. Coming into the market on Monday, we had that fake news about the 90-day pause. 2 days later, it became real news, and that's when we had the most historic gain ever, followed by actually the worst sell-off that we've seen since 2020. And that was still an inside day, even though we almost had a limit circuit breaker halt down. And then we had a pretty good day on Friday. And based on the news coming out over the weekend, we're most likely going to have a very sizable gap up. Yes, that is the insanity of the current market. If you are surviving this, even if you're getting a little beat up, congratulations to you, because you are surviving not only chaotic volatility, but literally surviving some historic moments. Like I said, I wanted to quickly get through that because the key information is about where we're going, not what's been going on. And it looks like we are going up and up and up because we got some major breaking news from over the weekend. White House says President Trump is open to making a deal with China. All right, that's good. A little bit of, hey, the door's open, we can chit chat. We really don't have to be trade war enemies. Not too long after that, breaking. The US publishes reciprocal tariff exclusions for computers, smartphones, and chip making equipment. And just like that, big tech is back. And oh man, was it back. The US imports approximately 100 billion of computers, smartphones, and chip making equipment from China per year. A total of 439 billion of goods were imported from China into the US in 2024. That means about a quarter, really 23% of all Chinese imports coming from the US are now exempt from reciprocal tariffs. And basically that was just a massive U-turn in this entire trade war saga. Even the Wall Street Journal, who isn't necessarily so supportive of the recent actions from Trump and the administration, had to admit that this was kind of a bullish update. Trump exempts smartphones, other electronics from Chinese tariffs, announced in a filing late on Friday. The move is a big reprieve for Apple and other tech companies. I have a little side narrative on Apple. Was there a little bit of insider trading there? But before we get to that, let's cover some of the additional developments from when this first got announced late Friday. China calls on the United States to quote unquote completely remove mutual tariffs. China urges Trump to correct mistakes and heed rational voices on reciprocal tariffs. So they're kind of saying like, we like it, but let's just go back to where we started because this is causing quite a bit of high octane chaos. And then from there, it got a little bit even more strange. US tariff exemption is a small step to correct wrongdoings. Okay, so from China, they're at this point where we both have egos, we both have hubris, but we're trying to extend an olive branch of can we get this figured out? So if you look at the swap market over the weekend, things were looking pretty good. We were definitely gearing up to have a pretty large gap up. And then all of a sudden we got some dampening news breaking. Commerce Secretary Lutnick says tariffs on semiconductors and electronics will come in a month or so, as in you were going to get rid of them, but then now you're going to reinstate them in a month or so? Shrug shoulders, question mark. Commerce Secretary Lutnick on the tariff exemptions announced this weekend. They're exempt from reciprocal tariffs, but they are included in the semiconductor tariffs, which are coming in a month or two. So basically there are not tariffs exempt, just recategorized. So like I said, this is a big shoulder shrug moment and everyone's like, what in the world does it possibly mean? And then it got even more confusing than it already was. Once again, Lutnick on tariff exclusions. This is not a permanent exemption. I have a quick idea. Maybe, just for a day, give us all a little bit of a breather and don't start counteracting yourself within 24 hours. Why not let the bulls have a little bit of a time to breathe? Anyway, you're not going to be surprised to find out that from there, we got more updates that were even more strange. The trade representative, Greer, who I don't think is going to be sticking around for too long, says tariff exemptions on electronics reflect a move from reciprocal tariffs to national security tariffs. New tariff categories are now emerging. Who knows what we're going to be getting next week? Once again, from Greer, says President Trump has quote unquote no plans yet to speak with Xi Jinping. Now that one I think is not surprising as of this moment in time, but they're both kind of like awkwardly trying to get that olive branch. So it's kind of like, who's going to officially ask for it first? I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a backdoor back channel type of a situation. And then all of a sudden we get a random update that eventually they will be speaking. Obviously, fingers crossed, sooner rather than later. This leaves us in the Looney Tunes situation of really not knowing what's going on. Things are green, not as green as when we got the first announcement, but once again, just be prepared for high volatility and quite a bit of whipsaw. Coming back to what I was saying, it's kind of weird that this was all announced on Friday, and then you start to look at some trades that were placed before the announcements, and it really does make you scratch your head of what in the world is going on. 2 minutes before the close on Friday, someone bought $850,000 worth of SPY 554 calls expiring Monday. This is a one-day trade, and they bet almost $1 million. And once again, we're gonna have a major gap up, and this is probably gonna be worth millions of dollars. And it didn't stop there. Breaking, this 40x hyperliquid whale has now increased his Bitcoin long position to almost $200 million, and is currently sitting on almost a $6 million gain. So once again, someone kind of making a lot of money. And then specific to Apple, and this one's really important because this announcement is going to directly benefit Apple. Well, you have another one betting a sizable amount of money. Apple, someone loaded up 4.5 million worth of call spreads, as in a bullish position with a little bit of protection that Apple's going to be going up. And surprise, surprise, it looks like Apple's going to have a big gap up. So what's going on? Millions of dollars being bet at the perfect right time. Was it a coincidence? Maybe, but I also think we deserve some answers. Senator Cory Booker says Congress should hold hearings on whether insider trading on Trump's tariffs occurred. I'm not the biggest fan of Cory Booker whatsoever, but I do believe that something a little fishy is going on. And in the general public, why can we not get those answers? Moving on to just some of the major things to watch. So yes, Wednesday, historic day. Thursday, historic day. Friday, slight breakout. By the time the futures market open, most likely we're going to have a gap up. But basically, I'm looking for this range from Wednesday to break. I should let you know that I am personally biased to the upside, but I think on this break of roughly 5,500, we have an upside gap fill. And then from there, I'm watching 5,700, 5,800. This does align with seasonality. Just so you know, the month of April is very bullish, but a couple things that either might help this pushing it forward or might kind of revert this movement. You should know that we have some major macroeconomic events this week. Retail sales coming out on Wednesday, Powell speaking on Wednesday, Thursday, normal initial jobless claims, and then don't forget that Friday, the market is closed in observation of Good Friday. We're also now in earnings season, so whatever stocks you personally care about, you might want to pay attention to when the company's reporting. This is from @eWhispers. Feel free to take a screenshot or just come to the Twitter website or just go to mattkohrs.locals.com, where I give you a little cheat sheet of everything you should be paying attention to. This is a free newsletter, comes to your email inbox every single Sunday. I break down the previous week, what to look forward to in the upcoming week, all the earnings. I kind of highlight the ones that I think you guys are going to care about the most. I give you all the major macroeconomic events per day of the upcoming week. And then most useful is I give you the seasonality of each individual day. So feel free to check all of that out. Like I said, it is 100% free. But overall, the bulls are finally, at least seemingly, taking a bit of control. I am looking for a very hardcore, harsh V-shaped recovery to the upside, not only aligning with seasonality, but ideally some positive commentary from all these earnings and the CEO and the board. And then once again, if we get more positive development from this trade war, man, oh man, I think before you know it, we could be back fighting at 6,000 on SPX. But with all that being said, this is just one man's opinion. I don't have a working crystal ball, so I would love to hear your thoughts in a comment below. I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate the good vibes. I appreciate your time. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.